Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is post-match reaction showtime after Liverpool have just let slip a 2-goal lead against League One Shrewsbury Town in the FA Cup, meaning we will have to get through a replay back at Anfield in a couple weeks' time to book our place in the 5th round of the competition. And it's starting to look like Jurgen Klopp is more than a little bit cursed when it comes to the 4th round of the FA Cup. As I mentioned in the pre-match video, he has never got past this stage of the competition. And on today's evidence, it's hard to see why, because while I've talked up Liverpool's fringe team in the past, and a lot of the post-match pre-match video even was spent talking about how I'm actually quite excited to see the youngsters. I don't see it as a negative thing that they're getting game time over the first teamers, and the same goes for the fringe players as well. You know, some of the lads who are maybe coming back from injury or just haven't really had that much of a chance in the starting 11 in Premier League and Champions League games and stuff like that. And it seemed like they were doing okay for the vast majority of the first half. For the second half, however, things more than fell apart. And I think a lot of the blame does have to fall on those first teamers and not even the fringe players. It's mostly the lads who are coming back from injury. And it's for that reason that maybe it's ever so slightly harsh to criticise them, because as much as they are much better players than the Shrewsbury Town players on paper, when you're coming back from injury, you're never quite going to have the same amount of sharpness. And Shrewsbury Town are obviously going to be giving it 110% for this game. It means so much more to them than it does to us. And that's the kind of barrier that you've got to overcome in these types of situations when you're coming up against an underdog side, when you've got that kind of David versus Goliath dynamic. I think having the youth players in the side is a very, very good way to do that, because they are going to give it 110% as well, because not only do they want to impress the manager, they want to get through to the next round of the competition. And maybe that's something that was missing from Liverpool today, in contrast to the performance against Everton, which I think it's fair to say was a much more assured and complete performance. I think we controlled the game a hell of a lot better. We kept the ball much better, and we never really, after a couple of early chances, allowed Everton into the game. Some of that's got to come down to the fact that Everton did not show up for that game at all as well. But I think there were subtle differences in Liverpool's 11 that I think did have an effect today. You know, certainly looking at the centre-backs, for example, Dejan Lovren and Joel Matip were just, you know, on par with the Chuckle brothers in terms of being a comedy double act today. The amount of times they were just giving the ball away needlessly, leaving space open for absolutely no reason. I know Shrewsbury are a counter-attacking side. That was mentioned a lot before the game in the build-up, and that's how they want to attack teams. And I did think, as that was mentioned, that might cause us problems, because, of course, if it's something that they're good at, that's inevitably how they're going to create chances in the match, given the fact that you'd expect Liverpool to dominate possession. But the naivety of the centre-backs to just leave those spaces absolutely wide open. You can criticise the full-backs as well. Maybe sometimes it was in wide areas the Shrewsbury Town strikers would drift a little bit away from the centre to try and find space. But in this Liverpool system, when the full-backs bomb on so often, it's got to be expected that the centre-backs will be willing to push out wide. And at the end of the day, Shrewsbury weren't exactly overloading those areas. So essentially, it's just a matter of, when they've got two strikers and we've got two centre-backs, go man-to-man, play it simply. I know this is a fantastic Liverpool team, and we shouldn't have to focus too much on the basics. They should be better than that tactically. But sometimes it just comes down to assigning yourself to one player and saying, I'm not letting him out of my sight for this entire game. That's probably what we should have been doing, because the amount of times their strikers were just left in acres of space, giving clear runs on goal. And if it wasn't for Adrian San Miguel, we could be talking about Liverpool being out of the FA Cup at the 4th round stage yet again. He made some really, really big saves in quite a few one-on-one situations. The amount of one-on-one chances that Shrewsbury created is probably more than any other team has created against us this season. And regardless of who's on the pitch, if you've got players like Lovren and Matip, who should really be in and around this Liverpool first team playing those centre-back roles, then that is simply something that should not be happening. Likewise with Fabinho, he just never really had any authority in the midfield today. I think there was maybe a slight issue of balance with Pedro Chiravella on the pitch as well. Both of them are defensive. Both of them normally play the number 6 role on their own, so maybe there was some confusion as to who was playing exactly what role. But I never felt like Fabinho was bringing any of that usual assured presence that he brings into matches. And again, he's another player who's coming back from injury, and it feels harsh to criticise him because we've rarely seen that kind of performance from him. So it feels like you do have to put it down to match sharpness. Players like Dejan Lovren, on the other hand, as much as he also lacks match sharpness, we've seen that performance time and again from him in a Liverpool shirt. And I know I flip-flop on him sometimes, because sometimes he is fantastic. He can have really, really good runs in the side, and I do not hesitate to praise him when that happens. But we've always known that Dejan Lovren has this performance in him, and that's maybe why, going forward, Liverpool need to reconsider their squad options in the centre-back area, because if we can't rely on him to deliver a solid performance against Shrewsbury Town, then who's to say that when it does come down to it, say if Virgil van Dijk or Joe Gomez or Joel Matip gets injured and he has to come into a really big game, generally he performs in those types of situations, but what if he doesn't? What if he does something like he does for the Shrewsbury second goal today, where he just allows the ball to disappear behind him without so much as really a proper challenge? He completely has no idea where the striker is, no idea what's going on, and like I said, just allows Shrewsbury Town to get an equaliser. It is a little bit of a worry, and my head's not really falling off massively with the result. The main irritation is really the fact we've got to go to a replay, and I do want to win that replay. I want us to win the FA Cup. I want to see more from the youngsters as well, and that it's for that reason that I'm not hugely worried about how it's going to affect the fitness. I know Jurgen Klopp certainly wants another game like he wants a hole in the head at the moment. He hates the absolute congestion that you have in the fixture list, especially around this time of year. But the fact of the matter is, all of those first team players, even players like Salah and Firmino, who he threw on the pitch at the end of the game, will probably play very little, if any part at all, in that replay. It will be the youngsters once again. So for them, it's some very, very good experience. The only issue is that it really, it interrupts their game time with the under-23s and stuff like that. But I'm sure they'd much rather be playing at Anfield under the lights in front of a crowd of about 50,000 people. If anything, I should be happy about the replay as well, because it means I'll probably get a ticket to the match. But it's just annoying that we haven't got the job done, and the way it happened as well. To be 2-0 up and throw a game away against Shrewsbury Town. I don't care who you're against and who you've got on the pitch representing you. That should not be happening. Liverpool should be closing the game out. We pride ourselves on the fact that the identity of the club, the DNA of Jurgen Klopp and his philosophy trickles all the way down from the first team to the subs, to the reserves, to the academy players. But if they can't see games out like the first team has done so often, then that is something that needs to change. And this will be a fantastic experience for the lads. And that's certainly something to take away from it. And there were certainly some positives in there as well. Curtis Jones had a very, very good game at times. He gets his goal, which is absolutely fantastic. He looks really, really composed in those final third areas for Liverpool. And that is obviously a huge boost when you consider the fact that this will go to a replay. Hopefully we can rely on him to produce some magic once again. Minamino scrapped an awful lot. I think none of us have really expected that from him. I think given how we performed for Salzburg, we expected quite a silky player, someone who had some of those kind of attributes of Firmino, of being the very skillful player who does all the tricks and flicks and stuff like that. Instead, he's essentially the other side of Roberto Firmino, or at least that's what we've seen at the moment. He scraps for everything, he fights for everything, he loves to get physical, he loves to stick legs in, try and win the ball back at all opportunities, close players down. Klopp will absolutely love that, and I'm sure as he gets more and more into the rhythm of things, that'll become more fine-tuned. He'll know when to press and when to drop off, and he'll know where his teammates are as well, and he'll move around the pitch to accommodate for that, and he'll gradually come into it a little bit more in attacking sense. But certainly in terms of off the ball work, I thought he was very, very impressive today. Other positive news, Pedro Chiravella plays a wonderful ball for the Curtis Jones as well. That was lovely to see. Nico Williams technically gets an assist for the second goal. I mean, it was one of the weirdest goals you will ever see, the Donald Love own goal. Thankfully, he is former Manchester United, so we are free to laugh at his misfortune. But it is technically an assist for Nico Williams as well, I guess. Apart from that, trying to think of what other players were on the pitch. Obviously, Curtis Jones, good. Pedro Chiravella, fine. But it was the senior players that I think really let us down today. Divock Origi as well just had pretty much no effect on the game whatsoever, apart from a couple of flashpoint moments where he does get on the ball and he has a shot here or there. He challenges the goalkeeper, he kind of takes him by surprise. Apart from that, he had pretty much no influence whatsoever, and that was disappointing to see because, like I said, we're relying on these experienced lads to help the youngsters through it at times, especially under the circumstances when it goes to 2-1, and at the end of the day, it shouldn't be 2-1. It's not a penalty. If VAR is in position, then Liverpool probably win this game 3-1, because not only that, we should absolutely definitely have a penalty at the other end when a Shrewsbury player is like that, which is a semi-natural silhouette, but then leans into the ball like that to block it from the cross from reaching a Liverpool player. That should be a penalty, and I'm sure VAR would give it, and I'm sure VAR would overrule the penalty at the other end. So in an ideal world, if that game would happen just as it did, but it was at Anfield, Liverpool would probably be through to the next round of the FA Cup. But once we go 2-1 down, we're relying on people like Matip, like Dejan Lovren, like Fabinho and Origi as well, to help these youngsters through that difficult patch of the game, and they just didn't help us get control. In possession, we were hurrying it, we were giving it away stupidly. Joel Matip just randomly giving the ball away 20-25 yards from goal at one point and creating a 3-on-2 situation for them was just impossible to fathom why that kind of thing was happening. There's lack of match sharpness, and then there's a simple lack of focus. I don't think it had anything to do with fitness today. I think it was entirely mental why Liverpool lost this game, and I don't mean mental as in ridiculous. I mean mental as in they were in their own heads about it. They weren't paying attention. They weren't focused like they would have been if this was a Premier League or Champions League match, and that is disappointing because players like Lovren and Matip, at the moment, they're not getting back into that first team side because of how good Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez Gomez have been. You want to see them absolutely dying, laying down their lives to get back into the side, and I didn't see that today. I saw two guys who just looked a little bit complacent, who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, and it feels harsh to criticise it because this Liverpool team is brilliant. This Liverpool team is champions of the world, champions of Europe, soon to almost definitely be champions of England, so I'm sorry if I'm going ever so slightly overboard with my criticism, but on that pure 90 minutes alone, it simply was not good enough from Liverpool today, and I'm sure Jurgen Klopp will be saying that, and that makes it absolutely fine. He will be livid with the lads after the performance today, especially the senior players as well. I don't think he can have any qualms with the youngsters whatsoever. I think this is nothing but a good learning experience for them. Harvey Elliott as well, I thought was fine. He was much more in and out of the game than he's maybe been in the past. Generally, he tends to be like the shining star for Liverpool in these kind of matches. He does an awful lot of creative work. Today, he never really quite got the hang of things. I think he was crowded out. He struggled a little bit physically with Shrewsbury's defence. But I thought it was a fine performance from him. He has nothing to be ashamed of. Curtis Jones has nothing to be ashamed of. Same with Pedro Chiravella, Nico Williams. Larouci obviously didn't have the best game and gives away the penalty, but it shouldn't really be a penalty at the end of the day. And apart from that, he carried himself reasonably well. Minamino did absolutely fine under the circumstances. But the senior lads, aside from Adrian, just need to offer more, and at the end of the day they're probably gonna have to play in that replay as well, especially Lovren and Matip. I think I can see them playing at Anfield and they will have to make amends for this result. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, sorry it was a little bit ranty and there wasn't too much tactical analysis. It was more just about how Liverpool simply were not good enough today. Let me know what you thought of the performance down in the comments below. Apart from that, don't forget to hit the like button down there as well if you enjoyed the video. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LSU Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back with the pre-match content for the game against West Ham very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.